welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome, wildflowers. We've got a day. Welcome to those I know. Welcome to those of you who are new. The open door, not going to shut. And understanding and appreciating the influence of this is really the most important thing you can be doing right now. The influence of the light that's pouring in can reach you in the corners. If you want, you can stay away. You can stay back. It's good to know yourself well enough to pace this. And you want to dive right through, it's a good idea to understand how to surrender. Last Friday was Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th was a day when the Inquisition murdered the Knights Templar. The Knights Templar had gone through a sort of terrifying transformation. They were at the heart of one of the most brutal engagements in world history, that murderous, even cannibalistic crusades. And in the process of being present with a culture they had thought of as evil, they learned a lot more than they expected to. And they came home with several understandings. And they both involved oneness. And this oneness was so simple that it threatened the fabric of reality as it stood and ultimately led to their murder. And here are the simple ways to apply it: good and evil, and male and female. The oneness inherent when we learn to unite the masculine and feminine within ourselves, the receptive and the assertive, is the transcendence to remember you're a spiritual being having a human experience. It's ultimately not particularly complicated. It's about embracing the fact that you are not intrinsically this age, this gender, this name, this birth. Again, not particularly complicated, but the simplicity is devastating to many worldviews. And good and evil. Now, on the surface, this one should be easier. Good and evil are not equivalents. Yet the duality, the ability to polarize and generate an ongoing duality that suggests this false light of a goodness that's equivalent to a badness. What kind of goodness is equivalent? What kind of goodness is equivalent? A false goodness. So they returned with this awareness, and it was too much. It was too much to bring into the mainstream culture because it undermines the pillars that many rely upon. The idea that in order to say no to aspects of ourself, we have to treat it like this dramatic enemy. And for many, this is true. You wrestle with an instinct within you to rape or take or murder. And you have to wrestle with that as if it is something you face. As if it is something you face in a manner that immediately gives you an intrinsic ability to say this and this other, this and this other. And once you've done that, you've generated the opportunity to polarize. So the Knights Templars came back transformed. Make no mistake, they carried a terrible blood debt. And part of their commitment to change it was to bring these teachings into Europe. Now, they seemed to fail because they got murdered, and yet many of them disappeared. And this is where we come to me. I was one of them. And I escaped and helped be a part of the Rosicrucian order. Now, the Rosicrucian order was a more subtle version of the same teachings, wise to the fact that the mainstream was not ready for them. And within this, we learned and embodied the ability to reincarnate with some degree of retention to the mind, to the awareness, to the consciousness that we'd evolved. And we did this in guidance with Thoth. I have been on a very unusual path. For those of you who do not know me yet, or do not remember me in this life, I've been led on an extraordinary path this time. In this life, 20 years ago, I was taught to check out of the mainstream. And what I was really being taught to do was to stop relying upon external information. There's an ancient awareness of the curse of language that Thoth brought to the Egyptians. Because when he brought language and writing, it was the death of memory as it had been. Memory had been encoded and accessible in a communal way. And once we externalized it, some was gained and some was lost. And the loss was not inaccessible to the rest of us. It was about accentuating the dimensional relationship between what we think of as external, the material plane, three-dimensional reality. In this lifetime, for 21 years, I have been committed to learning first and primarily from Thoth, from within. And as a result, I've been taught an enormous range of things that as I reintegrate with society, often through the internet, I'm like, oh yeah, you taught me that. Oh yeah, you taught me that too. It's beautiful. Now, many of the lessons I've been taught to understand, I knew in past lives. And that's why it was so crucial that I learned to embrace them this way, because I had to prioritize a recognition that I already knew this, that I already did this work. And as a result, I'm in a position where I can guide some of you more. It's not just assertively. I can help you tune to truth. And from there, you have to ask yourself, is this your commitment? Because the problem with relying upon external sources of information is that if you do not do the work to look within in relation to the external source, you can be led into false light. Now, what is false light? It's where you get several, in fact, it only takes two humans to believe in the same lie. And all you do is you believe in a lie and call it good. Once you've called it good, you are taking your capacity to access light, real light, and you're accrediting it. It's like you're investing it in a lie. Once you've invested it in a lie, it has no intrinsic integrity. It's out of tune with truth. And so in order to maintain its presence with light, you have to keep taking from somewhere else. This is what lies do. They're parasitic on the truth. They couldn't exist. They could not exist without a direct relationship to the truth. So to be present with truth is to ask yourself, do you want to take the long road or do you want to take the slow road? In truth, I invite you to do something in between. The commitment is to learn to recognize resonance within you, because as you root yourself in resonance, in harmony with the earth, you get this litmus ability. You get this sense of gut instinct, of your heart's reaction that will show you, it will illuminate what lies are. Now, let's be clear. Today, we're going on a wild ride. I don't have a pure sense of how this is going to work, but the navigation into the truth of this involves exposing you to a lot of themes that are terribly difficult. First of all, I want you to appreciate the practical nature of this. We are currently under the imperative to learn these lessons, because the way in which we interact now, particularly through the internet, has been consumed by the potential to lie. And let's be clear, lies in this context are out of tune with truth. So lies are not necessarily a malicious person who's like, it means you're going to assertively invest energy, pure light. You're going to take it and you're going to put it in a distorted form. And let's give you an example that really works well. Let's imagine purple and blue are fighting. Purple and blue are fighting. So immediately what's going to happen is blue, any presence that identifies as blue, and purple, any presence that identifies as purple, is going to accentuate the misdeeds of the other. and accentuate the good deeds of themselves. That's it. There, boom, lie. That's a lie. This kind of lie is at the heart of everything that's going wrong right now. And so we've got a battle royale in the world's forums of conversation where people are essentially arguing over the narrative. Now, this is a generous way of articulating it. Essentially, what people are doing is they're fighting over dominance. That's it. And they're using lies in order to fight over dominance. And the simple medicine for this is to aim for a rainbow. It's really not complicated. You aim for a world in which all essence has its place. So blue and purple and yellow and green and red, they all get their place because we're knowing ourselves as the rainbow. We are not saying I am blue and you are the other. And as a result, we immediately embrace a relationship with reality that's not going to do this accentuating the other's misdeeds and accentuating your good deeds, and diminishing the other's good deeds and diminishing your own bad deeds. It's really quite simple. Now, this is the nature of the game. Right there. We just put it in the simplest terms possible. I'm not going to use names of cultures because I want you to do that much work. None of you are an exception. No color is an exception. You cannot simply say, these guys are bad and these guys are good. And let me put you right where you need to be. Who were you in your last life? If you're not asking that question, you can't play this game. Who were you in your last life? Now, to make lifetimes aren't all linear. It's more appropriate to think of lifetimes as sort of like a flower petal where you travel the edge of the petal and return to the center and then travel again. So it's a little dicey saying which was your last. So let's just say this. In the 1500s, who were you? Now, if you can't really wrestle with this question, you fail to understand what's happening. If you identify so thoroughly with your color right now, you may well find that you're hating yourself. You're hating yourself. In fact, many of the people who hate another color and accentuate the misdeeds of another color dramatically were that color. Not only were they that color, but they were an aggressive, othering presence in that color, meaning they were someone who really stood up and said, blue is better than everybody else. Ta-da! There's the game. But wait, the game is better than this. The game is about healing this problem. The game is about healing this problem, which means the game is about putting everyone in a position where if you are going to behave this way, you're going to fight with somebody else who looks like you energetically. And I don't mean in hue, I mean in pattern. Because the truth of the matter is there are beautiful people who are blue and there are terrible people who are blue, and there are beautiful people who are red and there are terrible people who are red. And the terrible people who are red have beautiful aspects to them, and the beautiful people who are red have terrible aspects to them. Really, there are elements, there are those of every hue who are most prepared, most naturally inclined to help generate a rainbow. And most of us are probably in that category. Anyone who's going to listen to this for more than 10 minutes. So our challenge is to reconcile this terrible tension between other people who look like us, other people who behave like us or act like us, who were born with similar patterns, and our inner knowing that we're trying to create a rainbow. When you embrace the inner, you got it. It's to sit and rest and breathe with the sense that anyone who is deeply committed, fundamentally committed to creating a rainbow is more intrinsically like me than other pink people, particularly other pink people who fight for the right to maintain an imbalanced dominance of pink people. Now let's back up a little further. There is a long-standing story coming to completion. And it looks like this. False light was put into context. It was put into context a long time ago, and it was tuned wrong. It was tuned wrong. And when it was tuned wrong, it was put into an entire alternate reality. And in this alternate reality, the karmic ocean was born. Every single person who incarnated on the earth is like this. Every single person. We were all put into a false light from the start. Now, when we incarnated in this false light, we were split. We were split into hues. And when we were split into hues, each hue has a unique relationship to the false light. But the core intrinsic consistency was each hue was put into a perspective where they were told to focus on their hue, which functionally generated this othering. And in this othering, we were playing around with the most toxic energy on the planet. And it's fundamentally the same. Now, look, you could argue over distinctions. There's a difference between a cancer that is metastasized and moved from the brain to the lungs as well. There's, certain kinds of cancers just spread throughout the body. And you could look at one person and say they have 30% attack of cancer and another has 50%. But these distinctions are not fundamental. It's the same essence of sickness. If you apply this to human history, what you're going to find is that we've got a lot of people who are drawing distinctions saying, you're a worse cancer than I am. Your people are a worse cancer than my people. And it has truth sometimes, but it's a relative truth. It's not intrinsic. It's not what's most important. What's most important is that we come together to do away with cancer. Now, I'm going to use one major example because it's my own. And so I'm not going to just be casting stones at other people because every major culture that I know of makes this mistake. It's just that my own makes it in a way that has been unassailable for the most part. I was raised to believe that the Nazis are the worst thing the world has ever seen. My people murdered all the Native Americans, down to 5%. Look, they're both the same form of cancer. I'm going to kill all of you because we don't get along and I want all your space. And it's not just physical space, it's psychological, psychic, spiritual space. So yes, that's what the Nazis were doing. They were trying to take the Jewish space because Jews owned an enormous range of successful businesses within Germany. It's not that simple. But the point is, when one culture thinks they can take over from others in such a way, this cancerous ability to say, we are the good and you are the bad, is the false light. And however it's applied, maybe you have a little bit better table manners about how you murder other people. But at the end of the day, how does the lie settle? And when the lie settles into acceptability in some form, we've got a cancer that's it's still here. The cancer in my country is still here. And in its presence, we know the same cancer that everybody else has. And it's just saying, I'm going to accentuate the goodness about my people, and I'm going to accentuate the badness about yours. And the things that you articulate are likely true and exaggerated, and the things you articulate are likely true and exaggerated. Boom. So now we're just away from truth, and we're calling this all lies. This is the nature of the game. This is the nature of the game. It's going to go up and down. It's going to go up and down. You're going to beat this, then you're going to lose. Then you're going to beat this, then you're going to lose. And then lo and behold, somebody ends up winning, sort of. And that somebody looks like me. Now, let's be clear. My 7 greats grandfather was on the Boston Tea Party. He was buried with Sam Adams. He was the sheriff of Boston. I still have that lineage. Carry in our hearts the true country and that cannot be stolen. We follow in the steps of our ancestry, and that cannot be broken. We are responsible for our ancestry within this life. And the only way to take responsibility for it is to access the deep, deep, deep truth that maybe you were incarnate as the enemies they murdered. And once you have this perspective and you start to embrace it, you get the leverage that it takes to lead in this lifetime. And if you're not willing to do that, then you don't get to. You don't get to play the game in the same way. Because ultimately, the game is about processing all of this toxic othering and creating something beautiful. And let's make no mistake, it is work. It is hard work, and it's never going to stop being hard work. You want to stay here, you're going to have to keep working indefinitely. And it's beautiful. Anybody who doesn't enjoy exhausting yourself, wheelbarrowing dirt and digging holes, you got to learn. Because the gift, the blessedness of working hard to help grow a garden can't be compared by any metaphorical standard that you use. My wife, Tali, made this mug. It is invested with an essence. It was one of the first things she did once we had our son. To weave your essence with the material plane in this form is incomparable. The gift you receive from learning how to be a multidimensional being, grounded, rooted in your body, incomparable. If you haven't started to see the exquisite potentials that are being born right now, make nothing else more important. Because the allure, the invitation into a multidimensional, three-dimensional existence it's ecstatic. It's ecstatic. I will take a break and do, let's see. Hey, there we go. I will take a break and do some yoga. I'm going to do it right now because I feel like it. Take a break, do what I do or do what you do in just a couple minutes, and be present with how much feeling you can generate by aligning your mind, your body, and your spirit. It's not